Hello everyone, this is a tutorial on how to do a simple acting piece. So before I started this video, I quickly made a scene with some objects. I did not make this chair, I stole it off of the internet, and then I added a quick controller, so if I do animate it, it's only being animated on the controller. Same thing with this table. I did not download, but I did create the table, and I made a controller as well. So the reason I like to work with a controller is because worst case scenario, if I were to change the geometry for whatever reason, at least any animation that I do will still be saved on the controller. Even if I change the geometry, my animation is going to be saved. So that's why I like to work with a controller, even on something as simple as a table or a chair. So before I get too excited, the first thing I want to do is save this scene, save scene as. Always remember that the second you got your scene ready to animate, be sure to save. So what I'm going to do is find my save location, CSUF, Spring 2022. I'm going to create this new folder. I'm going to call this Acting. Double click on that, make a new folder. And I'm going to call this Work Files. So anytime I do anything, I know it's going to be in my work file location. Hopefully I can save as my ASCII. Let's see if I can. First, Rudy Solorzano _ acting _001. So remember, naming conventions, the way I like to have my naming conventions is your first name. That way anyone who's looking at your file or whatever it is you created knows, okay, I know that Rudy made this animation. The next thing you want to do is you want to name exactly what the animation's for. This is acting, but this could be attack number 7, attack number 2. You want to make sure that you have exactly what the naming convention is for the attack or the acting piece in the actual naming convention. And then last but not least, I like to add 3 digits because you never know how many times you're going to be animating in a particular scene. So I put down 001 as my first iteration. Let me save this or copy this just in case, because sometimes Maya just doesn't like ASCII. So let's see if this works. And it does. Perfect. Okay. So as you can see as well, I put my props into their own layer so that I don't accidentally touch the geometry. Remember, you do not want to touch the geometry. So I put it in its own layer that is reference, so I do not accidentally touch it. All right, so as you can see, we have this awesome reference here. I'm going to be animating from this reference. This is just something that I quickly recorded off of YouTube. And if I can give some quick kudos, this is Perry. Kevin Perry is the individual who has uploaded a ridiculous amount of resources for free on YouTube. I highly recommend checking out his channel. So first thing that we want to do is I want to hit the major key poses in this animation. So let's quickly just play this and let's see our character. So really there's 2 major poses, and I deliberately chose this animation because, again, I don't have much time for this acting shot. So I want to give you really the main points of the main basics. The main 2 poses that we see here are sleeping and alert. So these are the 2 key poses that I absolutely want to hit. Now, within this key pose, there's a lot of other stuff that's going on here too. So you have this person coming up. I would say this is an in-between. And then you have your alert phase. And then everything after that is just kind of like not an idle per se, but kind of a resting into that. So the 2 major poses for this are the sleep and the alert. So I'll say that these 2 poses are the main ones that I want to hit. And these are the ones that I want to hit, especially for this demo. So what I want to do is, first and foremost, animate the hip. So as you can see, I've already kind of changed the size of the chair and everything to perfectly match my character. You may have to change it up a little bit. That's okay. It's totally fine to do that. Now, as you can see here, I also have my acting camera in this shot here. Now, what I would honestly want to do is I want to turn off the nerve controllers in this right here. The reason I want to do that is because I don't want to be distracted by any of the controllers. I only want to see my character. Now, as you can also see, my feet are visible in the shot. They really should not be. If I'm really wanting to alter this character a little bit, what I would want to do is kind of lift this camera up a little bit more, and I think I will do that. So let's go ahead and just do that really quickly. I have my render cam right here. I'm just going to lift it up like so. So I see less of this, and making sure that I'm matching up the angles as close as possible. I want my perspective to be as close as possible. So what I'm going to do is maybe do that. And let's see, angle matches, does not. Let me just keep it there actually. Bop, bop, actually a little bit more. So bop, matching the angles so I have the perspective right. That perspective is pretty damn close to that one. This one is pretty darn close to this one. Yeah, that's close enough for my liking. So, and the reason I don't want these feet really to be shown is because I don't have reference for that. So I don't want to be making up things from my mind. As we start developing our skills more, it'll be easier to know and to guesstimate what our body is doing when we don't see everything. But what we really want to do right now is we want to use our reference, and always use reference, to understand what the body is trying to do. So let's go ahead and go back to our first pose, which is our sleeping pose. And it just looks like our character's kind of hunched over into the hand, and both of these arms are on top of the table. So this is going to be incredibly difficult, because once you start having things kind of interacting with each other, then you kind of have to finesse things a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is, just for my own kind of peace of mind, is fix these feet up a little bit, just so I'm like, okay, well, if the character was sitting in this kind of pose, this is what they would look like. And you know what, even to kind of kick it in a little bit more, we'll do this like so. Okay, so now that I have that, the next thing I want to do is the hip. I always want to animate the hips and the feet first. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, it's kind of hard for me to gauge this angle, especially because the physicality of these characters are obviously incredibly different. But what I want to do is make sure that most of the rotation that I have is coming from the hip. As you can see, this controller doesn't really animate too much. So, and this doesn't animate anything. Actually, no, it does. I'm sorry. This is really good for kind of bending your character. I would only use these to fix my poses once they have already been made, by the way. I would never, ever try to animate my character using this first. I want to try to get my rotations in first. And then if I need to fix something, I'm like, oh, you know what? This isn't quite correct. Let me just change this a little bit more so I get a more appealing image. And I got too excited and I kind of messed up my camera a little bit. Another thing to make sure, by the way, I don't know if anyone knew this, but if your camera ever looks too small in your scene, you can literally just go to the scale and just change the visibility like so. And it's also much easier to move your camera in the perspective view instead of going and doing what I was doing and trying to move it into this view. So another thing you can notice is, whoa, like this camera is not at all following the direction that I want it to. That's okay. I can fix that. All you have to do is, instead of world, you need to select object. So just so you all know what I did really quickly, I'll do it again. If your camera is not in the direction that you want, all you have to do is go over to the move tool, double click it, then you're going to click on axis orientation on the caret, and you're going to select object instead. And when you do that, as you can see, it automatically goes to the object instead. So now it's much, much easier for me to move and kind of rotate my character in a way that is appropriate. So let me just bump that up a little bit more, make sure that my angles match. This needs to be docked down a little bit more, actually a lot more. Make sure that my angles are at least semi-close. Match that. That looks good, that looks good. Cash money. Perfect, okay. Now that I have my camera in the correct place, I wanna make sure that this does not move ever again. So I'm gonna go to my render cam, I'm gonna select all of these, I'm going to click on freeze all, and then lock selected. So no matter what, I cannot accidentally animate this or move my camera in any way. So now that I have that done, I'm just going to rotate my character forward and try to match this pose as best as I can. So my back's pretty leaned over like so. And you know what? I actually want to kick this table in even further back so that the theft kind of has a place to lean over, especially like right here maybe. And then I could have my character really, really lean over and put their weight onto the table, like so. All right. Next, you may be tempted to say, "Hey, let's animate these arms next." No, let's avoid that actually. So let's try to replicate what's going on here as much as possible. It looks like our character is actually kind of rotated over a little bit. So let's go ahead and select this. And then again, we want to try to get as much asymmetry as possible. We don't want this character to immediately just kind of like go down. This character's kind of leaned over a little bit, hunched over to the side, as you can see. So I'm going to try to push this as much as I can and try to hit this as well as I can. The next thing I want to do is I actually want to try to move this head first. I want to see where I would put my arms if I could. So I'm going to move my character over. I'm really looking into the side of my head right here. And as you can see, my head really should be kind of like face down like this into their hands. But we're clipping really, really bad into this table here. Again, it's totally fine. All we have to do is just kind of rotate this back more. And boom, it's automatically fixed. And even if we're not getting the exact pose that we want, that's okay. I just want to make sure that the overall feeling is really what we're hitting more than anything else. And this feels okay to me. And if I wanted to push this even further, what I could do is, again, get this tool right here and just kind of rotate that over more. But not too much. I don't want my body to look like it's cocked back too much. Okay. So now that we have that, I believe these are the shoulder controls. This looks way, way up. So I'm going to bump that up. And I cannot see anything that's going on here, but what I can see is the general shape that is happening beyond the head. So let me boost this up quite a bit. And this will be a really, really good way of kind of showing exactly what's happening. So as you can see, we've got this really nice curve right here. And that's kind of the shape that I really want to hit here. So if I really wanted to, I would get my grease tool. Got my grease tool. And I want to try to hit this same kind of mark here. So that energy is what I really, really want from this. That energy right there. And to really hit that kind of energy, I'm going to have to shrink it down just a little bit, but what I want is that arc. And now that I can see that arc, what I'm going to do is go here and try to match that as closely as I possibly can now. So looking at my reference, constantly looking at my reference, moving this down, and not being afraid to mess up. So I know this arm kind of curls over and rotates like so. But I can also see that my arm is kind of lifted up a little bit more. And forward. So remember, looking at the angles, I got this gnarly angle right here. Let's see if I'm matching that. Yes, I am. And this is, again, exceptionally fun because I'm trying to figure this out to the best of my ability. Trying to be like, okay, so this character is significantly thinner. This shoulder right here, it's not getting my desired effect, even though I want my character to look like their shoulders up. What I'm going to do here is just kind of drop it down now. And as you can see, it's on the axis that I do not want. I actually want this on the world controller. So to do that, I'm going to keep flipping back and forth. Now, I do this all the time. If anyone's curious, I literally do this all the time to really get the poses that I want. Without having to worry about, being on the wrong axis and stuff. So with that, I'm now going to lift that up and rotate like so. Keep that down a little bit. And you know what? Before I get too excited, I'm looking at my back pose and it's not really giving me that energy that I have over here. So rather than stress out more, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to try and cheat the camera. Now, to cheat the camera, what I really want to do is look at the energy that I see here in this panel. I have my character really hunched over. I see more of this over here on this side, but my back is not giving me that same kind of energy like so. So if I'm looking at this, this is really what's happening. And I'm kind of getting that, but I really want to be hunched over even more because the head is below these shoulders here. So this is going to be weird, but we're going to give it a shot. So let me sink the head in here. Like so. I'm going to really cheat this. And I'm going to cock the neck up and then have the head come down like so. So now I'm getting a much better angle here, but as you can see, my shoulder should still be far, far above. So what I'm going to do is get the shoulder and see if I can rotate the shoulder without breaking it. And if I am going to break it, I want to break it in a way where it's going to be at least appealing in the main camera view. So that's not giving my desired effect. That's okay. I'm going to jump this up even more and then cock this head down even lower. So that's giving me more of the desired effect. That's good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zero this out actually, because I don't want to mess with the head too much. I want to try to stay as close to this as possible. So this is there. I'm actually going to zero that out too. And what I want to do is now attempt to animate this with only the rotations. So let's go ahead and jet that forward. jet this forward too. And we're going to cheat this by really, really dragging this up. And let's see if I can continue to rotate this down. Okay, so we're really going to have to stretch this guy. Another good example of trying to make appeal with what you're working with. So let's just see what this looks like. Obviously this looks broken, see? So what I need to do is now rotate this down even more. Starting with the back. Let's go ahead and fix this. And then I actually want to jet this down without breaking it again. So now what I would do is I would get this, and now I'm using this to get a more appealing angle, as you can see. So again, utilizing this to try to get a much more appealing angle. So we got that. Just that like so. And as you can see, even though I told you, you don't want to use this controller, this is actually exactly what helped me get that pose. So again, I'm kind of getting this energy right here. The shoulder comes up and then immediately comes down. So this comes up and this is going to come down like so. And really I want this elbow to try to hit as close as possible. But again, as you can tell, I'm not able to get this pose exactly right. So what I'm going to do is stretch that out a little bit and then move this up. Like so. And as you can see, we got this terrible, hideous looking pinch at the back right here. However, it's incredibly difficult to see from right here. So if I can, let's see if I can fix this. Not really, can't really do it too much without breaking it. So I'm not going to stress too much over that actually. Again, what I want to make sure is that it looks good from this camera view. And it looks fine to me, even though it looks really, really broken from this angle. It really doesn't matter because from this one, it looks fine. So now that we have that, I'm going to try to rotate this more. So let's see if I can rotate like so. And again, I want to try to honor this as much as possible. So I actually want to go back more. It really looks like the angle of the arm is coming out like so. And you know what? Now that I'm actually doing this, I think I might actually want to use the IK for this instead. So let's just see what that looks like out of curiosity. Really what I'm trying to do as I'm doing this scene is trying to figure out what the best method is for making this appealing. So let's just see what the IK looks like. Okay, perfect. So this is the IK hand. And I just want to move this hand exactly where I want it in the scene. And let's just see if this makes it even better. So as you can tell, obviously the rig does not want to move in this way. But again, the cool thing is I can totally use these to get the exact thing that I want. And it's looking like this is the better method. However, I must tell everyone to keep this in mind if you're trying to animate in this way. Animating on the IK is incredibly difficult because I guarantee you once I spline this, it's not going to give me my desired results. So again, I'm trying to blend the shapes a little bit better. Let's kick this forward actually, so I get a better silhouette. And that kind of gives me this nice bending movement and sensation. Let's kick this up a little bit more. And I actually want this elbow back way more. Let's see if I can kick that back just a bit. No, it's breaking it, so I don't want to break it too much. Okay, now that I have that, let's put this into a fist. Hopefully there's a fist control already on here. Let's find out. Let's see. Looks like I'm not sure that there is. Perfect. So we've got that fist in there like so. And it's just right on the face. Again, I'm not too stressed about that clipping because it's really hard to see. If I was really adamant about fixing that, what I would do is jet that up, rotate that down a little bit, and then rotate it like so. That way it looks closer to the reference. Again, this is really the camera that I'm trying to animate from, the one that I really want fixed. Now, I guarantee you there is no way in hell that this arm is going to reach all the way over to this side. So, to combat that, this is what I'm going to do. Let us make this an IK. Like so. I'm just going to grab this. And again, like this is going to completely break it. But again, it's okay to break as long as we can break it in an appealing way. So I'm going to jet this over like so. Let's see, move this down over here. I want to get that fist too. So let's get that fist. Let's click on this. Get the fist going. And then so I can see what's happening. I'm just going to move this head up like so. That way it's easier for me to see what's going on. Okay, so now that we've got this, let's move this hand over this way. So if we're looking at a reference, as you can tell, this hand is completely broken, but I can tell that the hand is actually going this way on this plane like so. So I want my hand to kind of look like this at the very least. And that works out because that's kind of exactly the motion that I have right here. So let me move the hand where I want it. And then what I can do is start to tinker and kind of move this around a little bit more. Like so. I definitely want the energy of this hand feeling like it's kind of coming up a little bit more. So let's jet that up just a wee bit. Actually jet it down just a little bit more. Okay, so here's the fine finessing part. Trying to make it look as flat as possible. And cheating it as much as I can. So let's move that like so. There we go. So now that I have this, look at this. Like this arm is obviously not going to come all the way around that head. So to kind of work with that, what I'm going to do is get all these controllers and push them out. So selecting all these controls, I just want to be able to see them. I want to move these out and, ooh, God, not like that. Let me actually move the elbow first. So let's move that out. I definitely want to be able to see that elbow coming in. So that's going to require me to really break this rig and kind of jet it out, but not further than the side of this one. So this elbow on this side looks like it is leading a little bit, ever so slightly. Actually, no, it's probably more even than I think it is. But what I want to make sure is that you're able to see this elbow. So let me move this elbow like so. I'm going to move this head back down. And already this is looking better, where you can see the elbow, you can see kind of the silhouette inside the elbow. And rather than have this look completely straight, I also want to make sure that I'm kind of bending this out a little bit more. So let's go ahead and grab this right here. I'm going to move this over. And remember, I also want to try to get this arc that I have going on right here. So now that I'm looking at this arc, I'm actually going to break this and get rid of it all completely. Let's get rid of that, all of that. And what I now want to do is try to get this energy to kind of flow over here. So I still want that nice arc of energy. However, I want to make sure that it makes sense for this specific character. So if I'm looking here, I'm following through. That looks pretty reasonable to me. I could, if I wanted to, and I am going to smooth this out a little bit more because this is a little too straight for my liking. If I were to follow this line, it just looks like the line's going out that way. I want there to be a slight bend here so it links in and it implies that it's following through. Again, another important thing if you're an illustrator, you want to make sure that your arms and your ligaments look like they're going in an appropriate place in space. And already that looks like it's way better. However, now it looks like it's jetting out too much. So let's put this in just a little bit more. That looks pretty good to me. So now when we follow this, it looks like it's going through. And now that I see this, I actually might want to jet this in just a little bit more. And then if I can, push this out. So it looks like it's going forward in space. And then I can tuck this head in just a little bit more. And then I don't want to see these eyebrows because it kind of looks like I'm sad right now. I don't want to look like I'm sad. I want to look like I'm sleeping. That's not the eyebrows. Where are the eyebrows? Are these the eyebrows? Those are the eyebrows. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to get these. And I'm just going to rest my eyebrows down. And as you can see, I'm losing one of my controllers here. This eyebrow here. Sometimes that'll happen. You'll you'll lose your stuff. Okay, that looks good for me. So you still want to see a little bit of eyebrows. Next thing I'm going to do is these eyes. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jet this up. I want to make sure the eyes are closed too. So as you can see, like I'm butchering and I'm making this incredibly like weird and wonky, but at the end of the day, as long as it looks good in the camera, that's what matters the most. So let's get these eyes figured out. So we've got these eyes. Let's see if I can change the eyes with just this alone. And you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna regret this later, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I want to be able to see the face much easier. Okay, like so. I wonder if I can close the eyes with this controller. Eyes move normal. What, there's more than one normal? Okay, let me save this really quick before I get too excited. Save this my ASCII, perfect work files, iteration number 2. And I won't spend too much time on this. Really, what I want to do is really demonstrate how to hit a pose, especially if you have a character like this. So if you want to make it much easier on yourself, highly recommend using the body mechanics rig. That way it actually looks like a person, so it's much easier and you're not doing all this extra work that I'm doing. But again, if you're interested in using a more cartoon character, this will hopefully be more helpful. So let's see, perfect. Lower lid. Oh, another important thing that I need you all to remember too. Your eyelids, a majority of your top eyelid is actually what comes down more than anything. Your bottom eyelid, believe it or not, actually does not come up much. It's your upper eyelid that does most of the work. So if you have the chance to watch some YouTube videos, watch people blinking, and I want you to look at how much the upper eyelid moves relative to the bottom eyelid. Your bottom eyelid actually doesn't move that much. It's your upper eyelid that does most of the motion. So what I'm going to do is keep that like so. There, he looks really tired right here. Oh, he's like knocked out. But I want to move this eyelid just a little bit up more. See if that works. Yeah, he looks exhausted. I love it. Okay, now that I have that, let's do this other eye. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, you know, kind of close. But that looks good to me. Perfect. Now that I have that, I'm going to rotate this head down again. I'm going to conk it back down. And that works pretty good because at least I can see my shapes a little bit better. Now this is totally clipping, but that's okay because it's really difficult for me to see the actual arm here because this is covered up. Look at that. Boom, animation. So the major thing that I really wanted to do was kind of hit this kind of sleeping pose. And if we look here, like look how broken this is. This is like ridiculously broken, but again, I'm not going to be looking at this side at all. So I don't have to worry about this looking like the most beautiful thing in the world as long as the 2D camera looks good. At the end of the day, really the only thing that matters is this camera. So now that I have this hit, I guess we'll call that part 1 of this tutorial, and I'll continue working on the next pose in the next tutorial, and then from there we'll work on kind of splining and all that good stuff. So hopefully this is of assistance to you. This is how you would hit that pose for this first part of the tutorial. In the next tutorial, I will hit the next pose, which is our character waking up and being alert, like so. And then from there, I'll work on a couple in-betweens and we'll do some quick splining so you know how that works as well. But hopefully this was of assistance. Hopefully this was of assistance, whatever. Hopefully this helped, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.